These are two identical bottles of water. One is 80 cents, the other is $3. And the amazing part is that you are totally okay to pay either of these prices. In an office full of water fountains, the bottle is worth almost nothing to you. But if you're in a park 1 hour from the nearest shop after walking all afternoon, that same bottle can easily feel worth $3. The one thing that changed in these two situations, if you put the price aside, is the value of that bottle to you. So what is a price, really? Today, I'll give you a definition that you'll never forget and 5 actionable takeaways for your own pricing. Here's the definition, the one I back with my 20 years in pricing. Your price is how much of the value of your product that you actually capture. The value is already there. It's whatever the customer walks away with in their situation. Your price is the share of it that you keep instead of giving it away for free. In the park example, the 80-cent bottle is handing nearly all of it back to the buyer. The $3 bottle is keeping it. Now the graph that makes this impossible to forget. Picture yourself selling water in that park on that hot day. The price is along the bottom, from cheap to the left to expensive on the right-hand side. First, how many thirsty people buy at each price? Cheaper looks like more buyers, but go too low and you actually lose some at 10 cents a bottle. People wonder what's wrong with it. So it's a hill. Too cheap, they doubt you. Too expensive, they walk to the next stall. In the middle, that's where you get most customers. Now, how much money you keep? Profit, 10 cents, loads of buyers, almost nothing kept on each. Raise the price and every sale is worth more, until you go so high that profit falls again. Now here's the whole video in one picture. Lay the two hills on top of each other. The peak of most people say yes and the peak of most profit sit in different places. The profit is further right, at the price where you've let go of your cheapest customers. Most businesses struggle to identify these two peaks. They park on the left, where everyone says yes and call it being competitive. And they leave a lot of money on the table. If that's your case, that's usually for 3 reasons, and you're probably using one. Your price is based on your costs. You add up the hours or cost of material and you add up your margin. Second, your price is based on your competitors. You try to sit just under them. Or third, your price is based on your nerves, the highest number you can say without your voice wobbling. All 3 are focused on your spreadsheet, your rivals, or your fear. None of them look at the one person actually paying. Picture that. December, freezing outside, and your central heating is down. A good plumber comes in. He identifies the problem and replaces one valve in 20 minutes, where another plumber might have needed 3 hours or even a second visit. Your heating is back immediately, and your invoice is $300. You paid for being warm immediately, avoiding damage, no second visit, and years of expertise compressed into 20 minutes. So look at the pricing. Price the result, and $300 is more than reasonable. But price the minutes, and you'll charge $50. Capture only a small fraction of the value you just created. So that switch from your effort to their result is all value-based pricing really means. And don't get me wrong, the lesson is not charge whatever the customer will tolerate. That destroys trust. The lesson is don't price only the visible effort when the customer is buying the result. So here's how to do it. Take the last quote that you actually sent. First, cross out every line where you are mainly pricing on how to do the work. The hours, the steps, the material, the meetings, or the process. These things may reassure the clients, but they are not the value. And very often, they are the reason why you undercharge. Second, write one sentence about what the client has afterwards in their world. More revenue, lower cost, time back, less risk, or a problem gone. If you cannot write that sentence clearly, then you haven't found the value yet, and no price can fix that. Third, ask the client what it changes for them. Not in a theoretical way, ask directly, if this works the way we both want, what changes in your business? Then stop talking, which is difficult, especially if, like me, you enjoy explaining things slightly too much. But stop talking, because the answer tells you where the value is. Fourth, price a visible fraction of that value. If solving the problem is worth 100 and your price is 20, there is little objection that they can have. That is the basic idea behind value-based pricing. Charge in relation to what actually changes for the customer. And yes, Competitors matter. If someone else can create the same outcome with the same risk for half the price, you have a problem. But it may not be a pricing problem, it may be a differentiation problem. Value-based pricing only works when the value is visible, specific, and meaningfully different from the alternative. The one question that you should strive to answer today is, what would make a rational customer accept paying more than my competitors? If you can answer that clearly, then you have a pricing strategy. So the water, that $3 bottle, is just someone keeping the value that the cheap one gives away. That's all price is. And now you know how to make yours. Tell me in the comments, what's the most you've ever undercharged for something that actually worked? Next week, 5 pricing strategies in under 10 minutes. The ones I actually use. If you think this was insightful, take a second to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.